That's like the funnest part of the whole thing is like when your vision just like comes to life completely. And it was my own design. It was something that was uniquely made by me. My assistant was like geeking out at me, like jumping in the kitchen, like so excited for how it was turning out. And that's like the most, I know you're seeing me like get so excited about this.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. And on this episode, we're going to be interviewing Amanda Keeney from the account Signature Sweets by Amanda. I found her Instagram account, Signature Sweets by Amanda, and the cakes, the desserts, the cookies, just everything looked amazing. She's doing great work. She does wedding cakes. She's been super busy. So like we were actually trying to get this interview lined up, and she said that the weekend before, like we're in the interview, and like the weekend before, she said she did something like 9 weddings one weekend. Just nuts. She's kicking ass. So she's Signature Sweets by Amanda. In most places, Instagram, signaturesweetsbyamanda.com. On this episode, we kind of get into like culinary, like how to make cakes, how like her process of making cakes, how she got started making cakes, the origin story. We talk about also some like small business practices that you should take. A lot of people want to expand their business and grow as fast as possible. She's taking kind of a different approach, and I think probably the more reasonable approach, and that's to kind of like stay as small as possible and like just build and build and build. Her strategy with her small business is not so much let's expand and get this huge kitchen and huge warehouse, and instead let's like make the best product possible and stay as small as possible for as long as we can. It's a great conversation. Business, cakes, cookies, desserts, what's not to love? Okay, I'm delaying. I'm rambling now. Let's get to the episode. So I present to you Amanda Keeney. Okay, so I'm here with Amanda Keeney. Amanda, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Jordan.
So if you want to give us a quick, just like 5-minute intro of like who you are, what you're about, what you've been up to.
Okay. Well, my business is Signature Sweets by Amanda, and I'm mainly in the Northern Virginia area. I grew up in Haymarket area though, so I provide a lot of desserts to that area. And I started my business when I was 15 years old because my grandmother had passed away, and I had gotten all of her leftover cake pans and cake books, and I actually didn't know that she baked. She actually had done my mother's wedding cake. So it was just a hobby that I had started, and I was afraid to go to college, so I went to culinary school because it was the only thing that felt right. What else?
So you go to culinary school, and then when you say you started your business, like you had paying customers.
I would say within the first year, like maybe definitely 16, I had people who were paying customers. I mean, I have young high school friends that were asking me to make birthday cakes for them. So I definitely didn't do it at my own expense, but legally, I'd say everything was legal by 2010, 2012. Yeah.
Nice.
So.
Okay. So first, I mean, like, yeah, a paying customer is a paying customer. So, had you always been into baking as a little girl, or like, was it just something that you were like, once you got those baking pins from your grandma, like it was, maybe like,
right. That was literally like, that was it. Like, I just started taking Wilton classes. Like, I have 1980s books that are like torn apart. I have pictures of drawings of what my grandma had planned to do for cakes, which was super cool to see. I have them all saved, and with little letters of packing lunch to my dad or something. But I vaguely remember getting like an Easy Bake Oven when I was a kid, and my mom making chocolate chip cookies. And literally my favorite part was licking the bowl, which is something that I like do all the time. My favorite thing to do is lick the bowl to taste everything. So.
Perfect. So you went to culinary school. I always ask this like with chefs, or even in my industry in filmmaking, like there's always a debate like, do you need to go to film school? Do you need to go to culinary school to make it, or to get the job that you want? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Or like at the time, what did you think of culinary school?
At the time, I felt like it was needed just because, my parents were pressuring me to go to college. I have a little bit of social anxiety, so I was afraid to, step out of my shell and meet people and, be in a different environment. And it just felt like I was supposed to do that. Personally, after graduating, I realized I couldn't even make it in the industry to pay my bills and, just to survive. So I just kept doing what I was doing just to make ends meet. And I also had part-time jobs along the way as well. And, but I definitely don't think that you need culinary school to, at least to do what I'm doing right now.
And you couldn't, you were in, because it sounds like they were, I think that's every kid. They just try to your parents kind of funnel you into the college education system, or what are you doing after high school? Or even when you're I want to do this with my degree, and they're what are you going to do with that? Or did you have the intention of, I'm going to go to culinary school and then I'm going to start my own bake shop, or I'm going to start my own?
I had to kind of done it a little bit along the way. So I fell right into it, really. I think a lot of people have this stigma of, I have to have a college degree, and I have to go to college. But going to Stratford really helped me with a good foundation of knowledge. I think it's definitely helped me. I have people who work for me who, they may not know how to do this or how to do that. And that was my foundation at the culinary school. So
yeah, people talk about with going to school that you learn discipline, at least, or you learn to stick with it, or you can if you can stick with it for 2 years at a culinary school, you can probably make it in a kitchen at least.
Yeah.
So you couldn't find a job after culinary school.
I had plenty of offers, but it was not going to, with how expensive it is in this area to live. I had already been moved out of the house at 19. So I knew that I just needed to, I was waitressing. I actually have waitressed for probably 10 years before last year. And I was waitressing on the side as well as making cakes for people. So.
Okay. And then it just kind of happened word of mouth that the cake sides started to really pick up.
And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I really got into weddings, and the amount of people that I've met, vendors that I've became great friends with, and it's just the referrals just in that alone is enough for me. So, yeah.
And when did you start to see that, you were waitressing these last 10 years, when did you start to see the cake side is really starting to pick up? People are actually really digging my pastries and okay, maybe I can make this a full-time thing, or maybe I can go beyond that.
I think about 3 years ago was when I really noticed. I actually had only been working, I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as a waitress, and then on the weekends instead. Before, I used to work weekends and weekends for cake. So it was double crazy for me. And then after that, last year I stopped waitressing in May. So, it's very recent that I stopped, but I've literally been doing this full time now, and it fills up my schedule completely. So,
yeah, right as you walked in, you said you had just done 6 weddings
yes.
in one day.
Yeah.
How do you, how does it,
it's a lot of planning.
How do you not mix up cakes? How do you, have you ever messed up, or mix cakes up, or mix times up?
I think I told you about, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I actually had a bride give me their wrong date for their wedding. And so I got a message from one of my local friends who's a vendor, and she asked me if I was doing the wedding that day. And I said, no, the wedding's tomorrow, no big deal. And she was like, the wedding's today. And I was like, you're wrong. And thankfully, I had already had the top 3 tiers done. The only issue that I was really worried about was that I didn't have the bottom tier done, which is the stability of the cake. So when traveling with the stable part of the cake not fully hardened and, settled, it could have been rough. But it was 12 o'clock, so I didn't get the cake there till 6. thankfully. I had the cake done in 2.5 hours, though. I just needed it to freeze and refrigerate. Like, everything needed to be nice and cold for me to stack it. So, but thankfully it was saved. The bride still, I don't know if she would ever hear this, but the brides probably wouldn't even know it was her.
Yeah, I mean, they had their cake at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So
right.
Okay, wow. But yeah, you're having to coordinate not only with the bride, but with the venue, with the, I don't know, maybe even the photographer, or just like how much coordination goes into like the day of a wedding?
I mean, on their end, on the coordinator's end, a lot. But just for me, I have to plan out like an hour or so to get to a certain place and an hour back. So some of them, if they're close together, then I can bring 2 along the way. I actually had to do a delivery in the morning at 10 a.m. yesterday. That's when they started. And then I had to actually coordinate one from yesterday for Friday. A Saturday wedding, I've delivered Friday night. And they had a fridge on site. So I usually like to see if they have a little bit of flexibility with me. I'm great friends with some of the coordinators at certain venues, and they're super flexible with me. So
yeah, because sometimes they'll give you like a very limited window to deliver the cake.
Exactly. I actually have had brides who want me so bad for their wedding that they have coordinated that I drop off their cake the day before. So I have one this year that is doing that, that's already prepared to do that. I had one last year that did the same thing. So as long as there's a fridge on site and somebody else is doing the flowers, they're like, we want you. And even in some situations, I've had people who want to order a special design from me. And if I know I can't do it, I won't commit. I won't make empty promises. I'm not going to commit to something that I can't do. And I've told them I can't do this, but this person can. And they've actually said, no, we want you because we've heard such great things about you. We've seen your reviews. We want you. So we're open to working with your design. So
maybe we should back up. Walk us through the wedding cake process. Because would you say the wedding cake side of your business is a larger part of your business? Or?
Right. The wedding cakes is the largest part of my business, and like birthday cakes and cupcakes and donuts. But the wedding orders completely. I think one thing that sets me apart from other bakeries is that I do full dessert bars. So I set it up and I provide rentals. But for like the first step of when planning a wedding is planning to do a tasting. And so for the tasting process, I actually go to people's homes within a 40-mile radius of Warrenton. Okay. So I make it personal. I with my business license, I can't have people come to my home because of traffic purposes. So I just make it easy on them. They don't even have to show up. They just have to be, be hungry.
Wake up.
You're right. Just wake up and be hungry.
Okay.
So I let them choose a couple of different flavors, and we sit down and we plan out the whole process. It takes about an hour. So
okay. So you bring in I got married 2 years ago, so we went through that whole process. It's like you got the almonds, you got the coconut flavor, you got the like, you want buttercream, do you want this kind of filling, that kind of filling?
Yeah.
And then you bring all those samples to them. And have you had a difficult client where they like, you bring in the samples and they're like, we don't like any of these, or we're like, we need to start from scratch?
I actually have had someone who was very interested in a hummingbird cake, and they wanted hummingbird cake with a mango mousse, and the mango mousse wasn't something that was on my menu. So we actually had to do a second tasting, and I brought those to them, and they ended up picking that, and they loved it.
Is a hummingbird cake, is that just a nickname for something?
It's a banana and pineapple cake. It's very similar to like a carrot cake, but with bananas instead. So it can either have like a little bit of like, I personally think because there's cinnamon in it and spices, that it could be a little bit more on the fall end. But it also, I think, could be a little more tropical because of the banana and the pineapple. So I've had someone else order it with a pineapple jam. And I think it kind of, pineapple jam and cream cheese mousse. Yeah, which when I tasted it, it reminded me of like if I'm like on the beach in like Jamaica or something, or someplace tropical.
Right. So they finally settle on a flavor, and then does that go? What's next? Do they go to the design part?
Then we talk about the design. I take all of their information for the coordination and for their delivery and everything.
And do you want to understand like their style, or like what kind of wedding is this? Is it a minimal wedding? Is this a boho wedding?
Right. Just to kind of go with their style. Sometimes I get to have full range, like full free range when it comes to the design, which even at the end of the day, I think while I'm doing a cake design, I'm going to do what's going to make the cake look best regardless. So if a bride is dead set on a design and if I'm working on it and it's not working, I will probably try to, make it look good at least. If the bride's design wasn't going to look good, I saved their cake. That's my job, is to make it look nice. But I can kind of work with them. I think for the most part, I have more free range when it comes to birthday cakes, though, for the design process, Yeah. Most of the time people get to send me like a photo of something similar of what they're looking for. And I've even had some people just say, do whatever you want, I just want it to look good. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put a pin in that. I want to ask you about that later. So they get the wedding design, and then how far in advance are you... how far in advance do they book you, and then how far in advance do you start making the cake?
Usually the weekend or the week before. So like for next weekend, I'll be baking everything for Monday and Tuesday. It's honestly best to wrap each individual cake and have them freeze for like a day or two. So everything settles.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier for carving and cutting.
Have people booked you like a year out?
Yeah, so I already have October 12th of 2020 booked.
Wow.
Yeah, and they booked that about a month or two ago. So
which is a little peace of mind.
Yeah.
Like you know what to expect, and you're like, okay, that's some business that we'll have in the future.
Right. Well, my most busy times are September and October and May. I had 9 weddings one weekend, I think 2 weekends ago. So
wow.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah, I know.
I'm trying to think, could I do 9 videos in a day?
Right.
9, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's mostly me. I have 2 people that kind of are part-time people, so I've just I delegate as much as I can. But when they leave, it's still me working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're baking the cakes about a week out, somewhat. You let them freeze. You wrap them, and these are just either it's like yellow cake or white cake, and I watched a whole cake series on Bon Appetit with Claire.
Okay.
I forget her last name, but she did it was great. I should send it to you. It was like a 20-minute. I mean, you probably don't need to watch it. It was like a 20. Each video was 20 minutes long. How to make a cake, shape it, shave it, cut the top off, get the crust.
It's a process.
It was like. And even she made a 5-layer cake, or it was
right. I don't think a lot of people realize how much work and how much time goes into each cake. I mean, it's a long process. So
yeah, because at home you get the box of cake mix, you put it in the pan, add whatever your eggs and oil or water or milk or whatever, and then you bake it. Comes out, let it cool.
Right.
Take the bucket of icing and just slap it on it. But you're making 5 different versions of that for one cake. Right. You're baking 5 stacks of yellow cake and then layering those on top of each other.
Right.
Plus filling.
Sometimes I have people choose 2 different fillings. Then on top of it, I think the most of the bulk of the time is in the baking the cake, making the filling, making all the buttercream. I think I make about 40 pounds of butter for buttercream. I use that much per week right now. Yeah, I've been buying 50-pound bags of sugar and flour every week. So I feel bad for the local place I'm ordering in my stuff. And
I was going to say Costco?
Right.
What's the go-to? How do you, I need 50 pounds of butter.
Yeah, I just go in and I raid and I buy 5, I think it's 6 dozen packs of eggs at a time. So it's a lot.
All in your home refrigerator? Okay.
And then just icing everything. I actually like to level off. I have to do an extra process and I level off all of the cakes. So just before I even get to the decorating process, that's just the bulk of the time.
And what's leveling off a cake? What does that mean?
So I just like to make the edges really straight and then perfect. So it's just an extra step that I do. It might not be something that everybody else does. I found a foolproof way. I don't even want to say it, because I don't want the people to know my secrets, but, it's just a foolproof way to make sure that my cake is going to be even, no layers are going to be crooked. But I just like to square off the cake,
And you've got, and what are the tools that you have when you're leveling the cake and when you're adding the filling and when you're doing the icing? Is it, they have like those like little pottery wheel
right
tables.
Yeah.
What are those called? What are those spinning tables called?
A turntable. It's called a turntable.
Of course.
Yeah, I use a turntable. Spatulas, piping bags are really good. I like to put like a dam of buttercream on each layer so it holds in my filling.
Oh, okay.
Just a little secret there. I'll give you that.
Nice.
But like if I had pineapple jam, I can't have the pineapple jam coming out of the sides of the cake.
Right.
So I put the little dam in there and just kind of pack it in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I learned about soaking a cake as well. Do you soak cakes?
I do. I have I used to use just a pastry brush, but I found this really cool like little squirt bottle that's actually for the purpose of simple syruping cakes, and it has tiny little holes in it. So I call it raining on each side of the cake. So I almost am so confident to the point that I would put it in my contract that their cake's going to be super fresh and moist when they taste it.
Nice.
So.
I guess for people listening, like I didn't even know what soaking a cake was. Like, wait, why would you make your cake wet and then
right?
Like, what is soaking a cake? Why would you do it?
So, soaking a cake just kind of helps make sure your cake is going to taste fresh and moist, and pretty much you can use different flavors if you would like. Like it's a simple syrup, which is a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you have a cup of sugar, just put it with a cup of water. You can boil it. I microwave it. It's a little bit easier just to like get the sugar crystals soaking through it. Soaking through the water, but you can flavor with like hazelnut or I've had someone do bourbon simple syrup, or you can do a Grand Marnier. Like I've seen a lot of liquors in a simple syrup, but you can put any other flavorings in it. I do just a vanilla base one.
And whatever, just to complement the jam, complement the cake itself and the icing.
Right. I've seen a rum one as well. So it just kind of depends on what flavor is on the cake that they chose.
And you're not actually soaking the cake. Like you don't want it like completely wet.
Right.
You just,
no.
Okay, you're just adding a layer of moisture to keep the cake.
To the top of each layer. So it will drain through just a little bit, but just enough so that when it's 3 days later when they're cutting the cake, it's going to be fine.
It doesn't dry out.
No. And really the buttercream is almost like a sealant on the cake. So it's not reaching air. So it's not going to dry out at all. And then if people choose fondant, it's the same thing. It's really like a protectant of the cake. So.
Okay. So now we got to go into fondant. Fondant that's like a hardened icing, or like that's what you see on those crazy cake shows where they're like rolling the green, Grinch.
It's almost, I call it edible Play-Doh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Just imagine it as edible Play-Doh.
And it works just like that too.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So you roll it out. You have to roll it out a certain amount of thinness. Like you can't have it be too thick or too thin, or else it'll crack when you're rolling it on top of the cake. It can be molded in all kinds of different ways. There's so many different molds out there, and it can add some more texture and design to the cake as well. I have a girl who works for me who likes to make little animals. So I've put her on that job because it's something less that I have to do, but it's very time consuming to put those together.
So you said the most time-consuming part of the cake baking process is obviously baking.
Right.
You're waiting 30 minutes. You're waiting 45 minutes. What would you say is the most nerve-wracking, or what part you're the most nervous about during the cake making process?
The nerve-wracking part is the delivery.
Okay.
Like, absolutely. Like, the delivery, like, I am, like, chewing my teeth or my gums or something, or my lips, just trying to drive these cakes. And I look through my rearview mirror. I have one of the seats down, and I am staring at it through the rearview mirror while I'm going over speed bumps, when I'm making a turn. I always have to hang back to make sure nobody's going to slam on their brakes on me. But there's all sort of things that can happen in the delivery process.
Okay, then let's go. I want to hear the logistics of this now. All right, the cake's finished. It's decorated at your house. How do we get it from your house to the car to the venue? Because you see you watch those Food Network shows and they're like, it's a team. They're like, okay,
right,
let's go, gotta deliver it, and it's like, ah.
Yeah. So there's the best way to carry a cake is to sit it on your shoulder. To not use your bicep strength to hold the cake, because it's not going, depending on how far you're walking. Thankfully, I don't walk that far to bring it in, but I can't carry a 4-tiered cake by myself. So, and I actually did yesterday though, but I had to hike it up on my shoulder. And the hard part is taking it from your shoulder to your bicep strength to put it down.
Now you're talking like on your shoulder, like a waiter style.
Right.
Okay.
Like you're holding a tray.
10 years of waiting actually helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the best way, because your shoulder is locking it in. So you're not using any of this strength. And
you're like, the further out away from your body, the more your just arms are shaking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a 5-tiered cake actually in Fairfax about 2 months ago, and I only stacked the bottom 3 tiers, and then I put the 2 tiers separate. I had to stand on a ladder and reach out and put one of the tiers on top of the other, and I was shaking. And it was in the room while everyone was having cocktail hour. People were watching me, and and I had no choice but to deliver during cocktail hour. So because they were going to plan to move the cake table anyways because of they had a ceremony indoors. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's the most nerve-wracking part. I want to go back to when you said, let's maybe shift to birthday cakes, or just go a little broader. You said when like clients just say make something, make whatever design you want. Like, how do you start that design process?
I usually like to take notes of what the person likes. And then I kind of like start drawing and kind of like mold together some of the certain things that they like. I did I think it was a 50th birthday cake about 4 or 5 months ago, and the guy liked wine. He was a fan of Redskins, and all of these other different things. I think I added a wine bottle on it and wine grapes, and I'm trying to think of it. I put a football on top. It was super cool. I had a lot of fun with it. And even like yesterday, I did a groom's cake, and the groom's cake, she told me he loved cooking, and he liked Harry Potter and to travel. So immediately I was thinking a travel bag and a map, and he loved Harry Potter. So I'm thinking I can use the snitch as a topper. And he liked to read, so Harry Potter books were stacked on top of the cake with the snitch on top of that. And then I really wanted to run wild with the cooking thing, because that's my thing,
Yeah.
And I've actually never really done like a cake that looks like food. And I made the bottom tier a pot that had spaghetti noodles just like piling out over top of it. And I don't know if you've seen the drip cakes that people do.
Yes.
So I made I made a ganache to look like marinara, and I had it dripping out of the cake, and we put meatballs on it. Mm-hmm. It was really fun. And then I stretched it. I love doing the detail. I stretched it a little bit further, and I took white chocolate and I grated it over top of the spaghetti.
As Parmesan.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then so we made bread rolls, a wooden spoon, and then we also did macaroni and cheese. So I did another ganache that was like, the yellow cheesy.
Okay, so you made macaroni. How do you make the pasta? How do you make the spaghetti look like spaghetti?
So
but still be a cake?
Well, it's fondant. You're manipulating fondant.
Oh, okay. Again, the Play-Doh,
right?
The sugar Play-Doh.
Yeah, and then you can manipulate fondant into make it look kind of like gum paste, which gum paste is a harder version of fondant, so it dries quicker. Fondant will dry; it just takes longer, and it could possibly crack. So the gum paste is pretty sturdy. You would be surprised. There's so many things that you can use for making things for fondant. I found a clay extruder, which is kind of like a gun. and you can put the fondant inside of it, and you can press the gun, and you can manipulate it with different dyes. They give you different
gun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of very similar to that.
Yeah.
And they give you different shapes that you can push the fondant through. So I had one that was like a tube, and I did a bunch of little spaghetti noodles, and then I did a thicker one of the macaroni noodles, and then I just curved them.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
So how did that go down? So you had, I mean, like, how long did that take you? What are the hours that go into cake like that?
I mean, the girl that helped do it, I really think that it took like 15 hours on this cake. It was very tiny too. It wasn't that big. You'd be surprised.
This sounds like a massive cake.
It was not. It was only a tiny 3-tiered cake. It only fed 46 people.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, with designs like that, are you perfectly sketching it out on paper, or is there a little bit of play where you're kind of midway through the process and you're like, wait, what if we did this? Or like, have you ever like detoured in the middle of a cake process?
I mean, not something that's like a full design, like this is going to be, I was contemplating changing the middle tier of the luggage to the top tier and putting the top tier as the middle tier. So I was thinking about adjusting that. I had written down that I was going to do a chef knife. Instead, I didn't do the chef knife. I did the wooden spoon. I just wanted things to look real. And it didn't make sense for me to put a chef knife on the table because nothing was being cut as well. So it's like almost they were stirring the spaghetti with it. But, just for those little extra details like that Parmesan, that was kind of really, and that's like the most, I know you're seeing me like get so excited about this, but that's like the funnest part of the whole thing is like when your vision just like comes to life completely. And it was my own design. It was something that was uniquely made by me. So it was just, my assistant was like geeking out at me, like jumping in the kitchen, like so excited for how it was turning out. So, yeah.
And are you even thinking about, because it's a structural thing, the cake is. So are you thinking about, you're not only thinking about the design of it, it's got to look good.
Right.
It's got to not fall over.
Right. So for the structure, you really have to dowel each tier.
Okay.
And
little wooden sticks.
Yeah, the wooden sticks. And then even I put a wooden stick through all of the tiers. So some people will put a hole in their little cardboard that each cake is sitting on. And they'll slide it through the dowel and have like the dowel screw to the board at the bottom. Does that, so they will, I've seen it done on Food Network on one of the cake competition shows where they just like build them and stack them like that.
It's a center column. Looks like it kind of skews in between everything.
Right. Okay. Right. So they stack it like that. I don't like to do that. I like to shove the thing through the top, the dowel through the top, just because I feel like everything has kind of more of a, it's stuck in there. I have to sharpen it with a pencil sharpener to stab it through. But if it has a hole cut in each board, then I feel like the cake has more room to move, even though that it's probably screwed to the bottom board. But I'm trying to think of some of the, I've done like a couple wacky ones, but I don't think I've done, I did an axe cake. Okay. So I did an axe cake, and this was my first time doing like any kind of structural. I had to go to Home Depot and buy this stuff.
What is an axe?
So it was a wooden log with an axe coming out of the top of it. So I had to buy a threaded, help me here. It was a threaded like metal pipe.
Okay.
Threaded pipe.
A threaded pipe, yeah.
Essentially. It was only like a half an inch or maybe 3/4 of an inch wide.
Yeah, where it's got the ability to screw it on the end.
Right.
Yeah,
So I bought one of those. I bought, I'm not gonna say things that I don't know. But I bought like one of those so that it would be screwed to the bottom of the board. And then so I had to cut it, and I had to buy the things to cut this thing. And it was so strong that I could barely even do that myself. But I took it and I laid it across the table and I manipulated it and bent it. So then I built the axe. I had stuck it through the cake, and then I had to build the axe coming off of the pipe.
Yeah.
Out of the cake.
And do you have like an axe on hand? Like, are you modeling it? Are you just kind of modeling from memory?
I'm kind of like looking at other pictures online to just get a little bit more of an idea. But it was a super cool cake because I actually, for making the wooden part of the outside of the wood, I melted chocolate. I made like a ganache. That was a very thick ganache. So
what's in a ganache?
Ganache is just heavy cream and dark chocolate.
Okay.
And you can manipulate the ratio of it. Just some of them will be a little bit runnier for maybe like a drip. Some you can like probably put in the fridge or freezer and roll them into balls and make little truffles out of them. But I folded up some aluminum foil and spread it out. And I had actually poured the ganache on it. And then I lifted up the aluminum foil and pressed it against the cake. So I put the cake in the freezer with all of the aluminum foil around the side. And then I peeled off the aluminum foil. And it had this texture look that looked exactly like a wooden, like a birch. I think I wouldn't say birch log,
like bark,
but
though.
Yeah, but like bark.
Nice.
It was so fun to do.
What would you say is the priority when it comes to taste versus appearance for a cake?
I mean, obviously taste. I mean, there's been so many times where I've seen a beautiful cake and the taste was not fully there. You know, I think that I have the combination of both, just based on, I'm not trying to toot the horn or anything, but just based on feedback, you know, but not everybody eats cake.
Sure. Okay.
So for my guests or clients, I tell them I would recommend serving only 80% of their guests with cake or dessert. So,
okay.
Yeah.
What was it like to develop let's say your yellow cake or your white cake recipe? I mean, did your grandma also come with a cake recipe, or like how did you start with your cake recipe at the very beginning, how it's evolved into now?
So a lot of my recipes have actually been adjusted a little bit. And my grandmother's carrot cake recipe is the one true recipe that I use. I use my mother's chocolate cake recipe as well. So actually, I had to add a cup of flour to my grandma's carrot cake recipe because it was just such a soft cake. It would not have held up in a tiered stacking cake. So I manipulated it. I, played with it a little bit and added a cup of flour to the recipe just so that it would be sturdy enough. But yeah, I actually have like a recipe book, but I worked by myself for so long, and I just had somebody start working with me this year that I'm like, oh, by the way, I add a teaspoon of that to this. Oh, I do this to that. So at this point, the poor girl has to like keep notes of everything. And she has sticky notes on all the recipes like, oh, do this, do that. Yeah. Yeah,
because the whole time you're in your own head, you know how to do it.
Right.
And then like having to teach someone to do your process.
Right. I just need a mini me or someone to replicate me.
I won't ask you for the recipe, but like how did it evolve? Like from when it first started to where it is today? It's just like you're getting feedback, or like you're tasting it, you're testing it. You're like, are you what are you thinking about with your the cake itself?
Testing it and just testing if like how I feel about it when I'm stacking it. Oh, this isn't going to hold up very well. I only have a certain window that the cake is going to be fine for and stay cold for before something as dense and heavy would, hold up. I've even, like yesterday, I did my Andes mint chocolate cake, which I actually took off the menu. And because there's so much melted chocolate in it, I melt the Andes mints in it. It's such a soft cake. It's very hard to slice, very hard to fill. I mean, you can imagine crumbs everywhere. And I was really concerned about it yesterday when I was stacking it into a 4-tiered cake. So, yeah. So you can, when you have things that are stacked on top of that, it's pressing into it. So it can bulge at the sides. So, yeah. So I'm just going to probably remove the cake and maybe offer Andy's mints as like a filling, garnish.
Okay.
So
let's switch gears to your business. Can you talk about like running your business in today's world, like with the internet, with Instagram? How do you think like your business fares today versus say if you were to run this business in the 80s or 90s?
Yeah. I mean, the Instagram and social media game is just really good for business. And I mean, my grandmother did it for friends and family, and she did it just on the side. Like, I mean, I actually have a little notepad of her costing out. She charged, I think, 80 cents a slice back then for a 68 serving cake. And I just really think that there's the whole dynamic and of how we've all evolved. There was a period where everything was a little bit more vintagey looking in the 80s, and then it evolved to a lot of fondant cakes, and then now we're back to the simple design. But I really think that, social media has helped grow a lot of businesses and establish like a need for what I do. I mean, even for birthday cakes, back when I was 10 years old, we just got Costco cakes.
Yeah, go to Walmart, go to the grocery store, whatever. Yeah.
And I just think it's really a trend now to, have something unique so that person knows that they're being thought about, So.
And I mean, how much would you say do you get a lot of inquiry? You say most of your business was referrals or like word of mouth, or, a lot of your coordinator friends are recommending you. Mm-hmm. Like, what about the internet side, your website, your Instagram page? How much business is coming? I
mean, I would say probably at least 30% of my business is just coming from the internet. And I'm only saying that as a guesstimate because I have so many referrals that come to me. So my website actually has a contact form that everybody can fill out, and they can tell me how they heard about me. And most of the time it's either Google or Instagram, or, a client referral of the sort. Yeah. But, yeah.
And how do you feel about that? What's your strategy with your website and with Instagram, with keeping up with business, and like, what's your approach with it? Is there an approach?
I used to be really, really good at my strategy with Instagram. I think like what I like to perceive myself as is, and I am, a very like approachable company and approachable person that is like, hey, I'm human too, even though I run this business. But I don't really feel like I do my best, to be honest, when it comes to like posting and keeping everybody up to date about what's going on. My website, I wanted to make it be super colorful. And I posted my video on the page of my website, and I wanted people to really see me and understand what this brand is and what I do as well. Mm-hmm.
No, that's perfect. You want to be approachable. It is you. It's not.
I don't want people to think it's a robot. Like, I just don't want people to think that like I'm this massive company that just
some institution or a bakery warehouse.
I think a lot of people are safe and sound, knowing, especially in the wedding industry, knowing that I'm doing their product and it's coming from me and I'm foreseeing it from start to finish. That's one of the things that I actually have a hard time letting go of is other people doing deliveries, because I'm just I have to be there and I have to foresee it through and just make sure everything's fine. So,
yeah, I want to ask about the relationships you have with your customers. Like, how do you, with wedding photographers, a lot of them will want to be like in those intimate moments at all times. And they feel like at the end of the process, it feels like you're almost best friends. Like, how do you approach that? I've
actually ended up having a couple of my brides be like really good friends. I mean, obviously throughout the process, or even like best friends afterwards. So it's really it's really sweet. Like they all have my phone number. They're texting me left and right, asking me questions throughout the process and even afterwards. It's really nice to just build a great relationship with everybody. So
yeah, and that's gonna be long lasting too. Like they're gonna, I mean, you can think of it from a business side, like, oh, they're gonna give me more business, but just like relationships with people is great.
I've even had a couple baby showers this year that I did their wedding cake. And then I have first birthdays. So it's a lifelong relationship, really. So
I follow some internet marketing kind of strategy guys, and they talk about, the internet has kind of made us, we've kind of shrunk down a little bit into like our circle. Like we're all exposed. We're all like completely on the record about everything. So it's almost like, the village, like think of like a village in like the 1800s. Like everybody knew each other. Everybody knew the baker. Everybody knew the butcher. And it's like now with the internet, we're kind of able to achieve that again.
Right.
Where it's not just some faceless chef at Walmart making your cake, squirting out whatever. What's Johnny's birthday? It's like, now it's like an actual, it's a relationship again.
Right.
So let's talk about the future with your bakery, or as your. I mean, what do you even describe your business as? It's like a pastry business, or like I asked you before, like
yeah. I mean, definitely,
chef?
I would say definitely bakery, but I would say more so a cake designer. But I do call myself a pastry chef. I do have a pastry degree. I actually have a culinary degree too, but I would consider myself more so like a cake designer or a baker. Long-term goals, I definitely want to open up a storefront. Just with my personal life, I need to get that settled and have, I just want to do it right. My goal is to not gun-ho, let's do this and just spend a lot of money and make a lot of bad choices and learn the hard way. I mean, I know I'm going to learn the hard way, but I know I have enough following that I would probably be successful. I just want to do it at the right time and be do it slowly and get there slowly. I actually have a Kickstarter going right now, and really the goal is to raise $12,000 to renovate and upgrade my kitchen equipment to be like commercial kitchen. Mm-hmm.
Larger equipment, and this way you'll be able to kind of make more things, just kind of scale up.
Right. I have 2 commercial fridges in my house right now on top of the 2 other that I have and a freezer. So it's really taking over my house. But just I really want a commercial oven so bad, but I think really I need a sink more.
Okay. Yeah, you were telling me your sink is like a foot wide or something.
Literally, my sink is about the size of a small mixing bowl.
Okay.
And I actually have like a 30-quart mixer too. So whenever I wash that out, that is my sink really. Okay. So I have to wash out inside of it. I really just could use a 3-sink compartment just to wash all of my dishes. I think I would wash dishes every single day. I mean, I already wash dishes every single day, but I am really trying to focus on, promoting this Kickstarter. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that the purpose is for a donation and they receive a reward. They can receive donuts or cupcakes, or I'm doing a wedding cake option as well, and even a private lesson with me. They're just pledging. So their credit cards aren't being charged until the last final day if I hit the $12,000. So it's all or nothing. And so really it's just kind of it is crowdfunding. So sharing and making sure everybody's understanding it and aware of it has been a little bit slow moving so far. I know a lot of people pay for marketing to push it. And
yeah, you had a Kickstarter video come out. And like you've got the full page.
Right.
You're totally running it right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm just trying to hit the mark. I mean, $12,000 won't be enough, but it will definitely help. You know, I had other friends who I was asking if I should maybe do a GoFundMe, and they said that they didn't think that I had anything wrong with me. And I was like, well, businesses do it.
Yeah, it's not just for
it's not like charity.
Yeah.
You know, so the best thing about this is that I get to provide a sweet treat for people, and you know, somebody gets the opportunity to help me out as well. So,
yeah. Like I want to know more about like your idea of scaling, and like how you came to the idea that you need a Kickstarter, because businesses can scale too fast. Right. Or like you said, like they can go full out, get the cake studio, get the industrial, everything, and just like, you know, and then they realize like the cakes can't exactly pay for it. Like I think what you're doing is a little more measured. Like
right.
You're not.
I've been like super measured throughout my whole process. I mean, I bought a house with 2 kitchens, so now I got to separate my personal and my business life. So, I needed to, and I've actually scaled a little bit larger in my house, but I'm just trying to be conservative when it comes to
cautious. Isn't quite the right word, but like,
right,
because cautious means like you're kind of scared a little bit, but you're being like,
I'm being conservative when it comes to it, and I'm very young. I'm 26 years old, mm-hmm. So you know, I just want to make sure that I'm doing it the right way. But I have had dreams and hopes and visions of how I see myself, and mm-hmm. I've had opportunities for people to invest in me, and I'm not personally there yet, or you know, I'm not there yet completely, and I just want to make sure that my business is being done right in the whole process. But this is like a halfway point. This Kickstarter will be like a halfway point for me to get there. It's even if I move out and open up a studio or something, or open up a storefront, then I already have most of the equipment, so that will save me when I'm there in the future. But I've had thoughts of, you know, having a warehouse and then shipping things, or, you know, delivering things to a storefront location, if that. But I think if anything, if I like had like a nice warehouse space, just to even have like a larger studio without even having a storefront, then that would be great too. That would be another like halfway point, like a little step ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's like you could scale your equipment, you could scale the space, but then with that, now you have to even scale your employees, mm-hmm. maybe like it, and then
right,
and then you get so big that, you know, Amanda isn't making the cakes anymore. Right. She's just making sure that Kelsey and Kelly are making the cakes.
Yeah. So. I think a lot of people don't realize is how much it costs and how much time consuming it is to be a business owner. I mean, especially for restaurant industries. I mean, I worked for so many restaurants, and the amount of cost that goes in it, and then trying to see a return is really hard, at least within the first 5 years. So, I mean, for me, the amount of money that goes into it and paying people to do the things, all of the ingredients, all the electricity bills, the equipment, it takes a long time to see a return. And like I don't pay myself, to be honest. Yeah. I don't pay myself. So I mean, I pay the people to help make things happen, and I make sure my bills are paid. Mm-hmm. And that's that. I just do it just because I love to do it, you know? Yeah.
No, and that seems, to someone outside the business world, that seems like ridiculous.
Right. But people who are in the business world, they understand about mm-hmm. not paying themselves. You watch the Shark Tank show. Yeah. There's so many people on that show that say that they don't pay themselves, you know, that they just kill themselves and work so hard just for the vision and just for the dream, and they don't pay themselves. It's very common to be a business owner, and I'm just making sure that, you know, bills my things are covered, and
the water still turns on.
Right. Yep. Well, not still turn. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not rough.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're like on the brink, but it's like, but some could be like that. I mean, they're like, they don't pay themselves, or right, or they're taking what they would pay themselves mm-hmm. and they're just reinvesting it. Right. Like you're buying new equipment. Right. That's what I'm doing. Yep. That's what I would rather do. I would rather the money go towards my company, mm-hmm. you know, and making it grow than, you know, something else. So. Yeah. Because, I mean, if you like, oh, I want a new car, or mm-hmm. I want to like go on vacation. Right. Like, Foolish move. Yeah, because you said, because you're now, how many years are you into this officially? Or like as Signature Sweets?
As Signature Sweets, next year will probably be a 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and you're just...
Oh my God.
Wow.
That feels like I feel old.
You need to make a birthday cake.
But yeah, I have to make a perfect cake. But really, 15 years? 14?
Yeah.
No, not 14.
If you started at
11.
15.
11. I started at 15.
Okay. But it's like, that can seem like, wow, you've been at this for 10 years and you're just now thinking of scaling up. You're just now going to get like that, it takes time.
It does.
It's not just like, I'm going to get $1 million of investment funds and just, go build this huge warehouse or, build this cake empire.
Yeah.
But it's like, the way you're doing it, it seems like small, measured, slow, but steady growth.
Right. That's how a lot of people, I think, fail. And like this year, I am over 100 weddings. So I have over 220 orders on the books for the year. And then last 2 years ago, I had 36 weddings. So that just shows how much I've grown. Last year, I did 78, I think. So it's just I'm growing a little bit. I tremendously between 2 years, really. So just I'm trying to keep up with my growth a little bit, but that's how just so many people fail. I had a business person come over to my house the other day and he mentioned, Amanda, you can get a $50,000 loan. You can get a $100,000 loan like nothing. And it does not appeal to me to take out this much money for, things that, I just don't want it to be temporary. I want my business to be a permanent staple in the area.
And they would give you that money.
Oh, absolutely.
They would give you $100,000.
Absolutely.
Like, build your kitchen. Yeah, let's get you a studio. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to do it little by little, and hoping for the help of some people. And at least I'm working for it. I've never felt good about, taking money from people, I guess you could say. I don't want to say it's taking money, but I've never felt good about doing that. So it makes me feel better knowing that I'm providing a service in exchange for a donation. So
yeah, your Kickstarter, it's almost it's not a donation. It's almost like you're just
right.
Like
I have to count it as sales. So
yeah, the rewards you're putting out there it's almost like you're just buying a product.
Exactly, because the amount of time that I'm having to use or to do everything, and then also ingredients to make everything, at the end of the day, it really is like me providing. It's just I had to mark it up a little bit just so it would be more of a donation, than just because of the cost of ingredients and everything and time. So
okay, well, Amanda, this has been great. If you want to tell us what's going on, social media, website, where can we find your work? Where can we find more about this Kickstarter project? Tell us all. Yes.
You can visit me on Instagram at Signature Sweets by Amanda. And the link for the Kickstarter is in my profile. Everything for all of my contact information is all Signature Sweets by Amanda. So signaturesweetsbyamanda.com. If you want to email me and reach out at gmail.com. And you can follow me on Facebook at Signature Sweets by Amanda.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so that was Amanda Keeney, Signature Sweets by Amanda. To give a quick update to her Kickstarter campaign, it's now over. I'll link the project so you can kind of check it out. But she got 138 backers who pledged $14,450. All that money's going to go towards building her kitchen, getting her commercial oven. We're super excited for her, and we wish her all the best. Thanks for listening, guys. My name is Jordan Anderson. If you want to go on iTunes or your Apple Podcast, leave a review. Give it, whatever, 5 stars, 4 stars, 2 stars, 1 star, whatever you want to do. Leave a review. It helps kind of boost up the podcast, get it to the top. That's about it, guys, for this episode. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.